You know light years? So study physics, you know that. We use the word kappa, means the word eons, A-E-O-N-S, eons. And how to explain this eons? Oh, very difficult to explain. This is a very long concept of time. It is said there is a parable used to explain an eon. That if you are to go to Himalaya mountains, and you carry with you one silk cloth, and once every 100 years, you go there and just wipe against that mountain. Now, how long will it take for you to flatten that mountain? That mountain will be flattened sooner than that eon, that kappa. That long time taken. That is the analogy that is given. So I do not know whether you can imagine. There are also different kinds of kappa. There is maha kappa. Sometimes this kappa also refers to a world cycle. With the appearance and disappearance, or with the integration and disintegration of the world system, is known as one kappa also. Now, with the disintegration of the world, beings are born in Abhasara, they live for a very long time. And then again, there is the integration of the particles, and then again there is this planet. Then when the planet is now ready, cooled down considerably, and ready to be inhabited by beings, then who appears? Those former beings that were born up, Abhasara Brahmaloka, they come, and then they settle down. Still, they are radiant beings flying about. But they can't resist that temptation. It is said that when the earth, with the integration, with the cooling down of the earth crust, there is what you call the scum of the earth. Very tasty, it seems. No? And like what the biologists call the primordial soup. No? A lot of protein molecules there. So it seems it's very tasty, and this Abhasara Brahma comes and tastes that. And then he has attached. He has a craving towards that earthly food. When he begins to consume this earthly food, then his body also became more earthly. The radiance disappears from that body. When there is no more radiance, then the sun appears. Then the moon appears. Then day and night appears. But this is the story of how world creation is. This is in the Aganya Sutta. Now this sutta has been influenced, no doubt, by the Vedic Upanishad. But this is how the Buddhist presents a theory counteracting that theory of divine creation. Understand? There is another way how Buddhist theory of creation counteracts the divine creation. How the Brahma appears when it is time for him, when all the karmas are ripened, he has to be reborn, and he is reborn on earth. And the first one that is born on earth looks around and sees there's nobody. Then loneliness appears and he wishes, how I wish, I had some company. And true enough, some of his fellow friends up there also time's up. And rebirth takes place, they appear on the earth. Then he thinks, I think of company, he came. And then he tells them, see, I thought about you, I desired, you appeared. I created you. And they looked around, they see there's nobody else. He is the first one. So they submit themselves and they say, you must be the creator. And so there are these stories. Now, again, this is how, in this story, or rather in this parable, or this explanation, this theory of physical, this is a physical causation, how the physical world appears and disappears, it is explained in Buddhism in terms of conditionality. When this arises, that arises. When this arises, that arises. When this ceases, that ceases. Like that. We don't explain it as a one-cause theory, as the original first beginning. No. It is a continuous cycle. It is a relative beginning. Yes. The Buddha says that the first beginning or the absolute beginning cannot be conceived in the mind. Now, when you speak of an original, the first beginning and absolute beginning, you have to introduce the concept of time. When you start introducing the concept of time, says, now this is the beginning, that means this is present. The present is the beginning. The present already passed. Then there will be the future. Past, present and future. When you introduce the concept of time, you introduce the concept of past, present and future. Then where is the beginning? Where is the first? Cannot conceive of it. There's always the past. What was the past? If you say there was the origin, the first one, what was before that? And if you say that everything must be created by someone, then who created that someone? You end up there. Full stop. Don't ask further. Now that is what you call independent creation, independent origination. He exists there independently. And he is not dependent on others. That is what we call independent. But Buddhism explains the dependent origination. I remember when I was in school, I was asked the question, when I was still very small. They asked me the question, who made the desk? I say, carpenter. He said, who made the carpenter? Very tricky question. I said, must be the carpenter's parents, mother and father. Then he said, who made the mothers and fathers? I said, the grandparents, grandmother and grandfather. And who made the great-grandmother, great-grandfather? And go on. It's this. Then my teacher says, he happens to be in a Bible class, you see. I had to study the Bible. And then he says, there must be something who created them, no? Well, I see. Though young, I have that view. If you say that there must be something, then there must be for you. But I don't accept that. Now, of course, now if they were to ask me the same question, I will explain to them how that table come to being. It is made of wood. How the wood came to being. The tree must be there. how the tree come to being, dependent on water, dependent on soil, dependent on sunlight, dependent on all these factors. Dependent origination. Yeah. Cannot for one cause theory. How can? Anyway, this theory, you see how this teaching existed even during the time of the Buddha, pre-Buddhistic times also. It is still carried on now into what we call the Aquarian age, age of reasoning. Now, so we have the explanation how we explain physical causation. Then we can also explain perception process, how perception takes place. And this is very important for those who study psychology. How perception takes place. This is also very clearly explained in the teachings of the Buddha. In fact, the very word perception brings us to which of the 12 links? You have to speak about the 6 bases. For perception to take place, there must be the organs, the 6 bases. So we speak of Salayatana. Then there is in one sutta in Majjhima Nikaya that explains, depending on eye and visual forms arises eye consciousness. With eye consciousness, the meeting of eye consciousness, the eye visual forms arises contact. Where there is contact, there is feeling, sensation. Then, what one feels, one perceives. What one perceives, one reflects upon. What one reflects upon, one becomes obsessed with that. This is how your mind, you are driven by those thoughts in your mind. When you see something, and when there is no check, there is no restraint, there is no mindfulness there, the moment you feel something, you perceive it. Now your perception is being colored by your past experiences. According to your past conditionings, what you experienced in the past, then you begin to have put color to what you perceive. Then you reflect on that, you think about it. And then you are driven by that thought. This is the psychological process. And if you observe carefully, watch carefully, how you are driven by your thoughts, you become what you think. Your thoughts move you. Of course, when you say, I want to be an engineer, and you begin think about that. One day you become an engineer, no? And similarly, whatever you want to become, when you think of that again and again, then that thought drives you and you become that. There is no wonder about that. Of course, if you have this lukewarm thought, I don't know what to do, and all depends on my result, then you don't become anything. And so if you want to succeed, you must have an aim. If you want to succeed in a worldly sense, you aim that. And you keep on again and again that. Then you become that. That's the secret to success, also explained here. And now, you see in this process of perception, how we explain when this arises, that arises. Huh? Where contact, when contact comes to being, then there is feelings. When there is feeling, there's one perceives, he perceives. When he perceives something, then he reflects, reflection takes place. When he reflects on that again and again, then he becomes obsessed by it. He cling, attached to that. This thought cannot go away from that. How difficult it is to get rid of certain thoughts which you have thought again and again, deeply impressed in your mind. When you are obsessed by certain food, you start imagining that food again and again, again and again. Every time you cannot get rid of that thought. This is conditionality, how you are being conditioned by things. Similarly, we can explain moral behavior, karma, in terms of Paticca Samupada or causation. When this action arises, then this effect also arises. Effect takes place. There are certain in the Chula Kama Vibhanga, there is mention. When one kills, destroys, takes away life, destruction of life, then there will be a tendency that person will be short-lived. That means his life will be short. On the other hand, when he refrains from taking life, then there is a tendency for him to live longer life. But we only use the word tendency. We don't say that if he kills, then he will live short life. We don't say that. Although some people have this idea, when they talk about law of karma, they think that, especially those people who have been reading that pamphlet on Karma Sutra, karma, about, they are sometimes, actually that sutra, which is in Chinese and in English, oversimplified, they have been taken from here and there. It can bring about a lot of confusion. The real teachings on the law of karma does not take place like that. You see, sometimes they say, why is that person hunchback? Person hunchback because he laughed at the mom. So if you laugh at us, you watch out. You see, laughing at a mom, that means result hunchback. Oh. No, if you have that kind of idea, that is not the law of karma. That is not the law of conditionality. Now, take for instance, the same action may not produce the same reaction for everybody. That is where conditionality explains. Now take for example, all of you here, I give you some water, dirty water, rainwater perhaps, to drink. And after that, when you go back, Some of you get some reaction. Others are still healthy and happy. Not all of you get sick. Some of you may get sick from drinking that water. But all of you drink the same water. Why? Why is it that some say, oh, I drink this water, I get stomachache. And some don't get it. Then you say, action, reaction. All must face the same thing. No. Why? Because different conditions, different sets of conditions. Some of you are very strong, very healthy constitution. You take whatever dirty water also, you don't get sick. There are some people like that. Or some people who are used to taking dirty water also, they are built up their immunity. Others have got weak stomach, weak system. It takes and becomes sick. Similarly, the karma works like that. You cannot say always that if you do these things, definitely you're going to get that result. Because, now take for example, the person who lies, who cheats. You cannot say that, oh, he's going to hell. Why? Because he may have some other virtues, some other strong virtues with him. Or the last moments, he has some right views. So he is born in a better plane of existence. Although it is the law that good begets good, evil begets evil. But karma operates. The law of karma is subject to, again, conditionality. The law of Paticca Samupada. Understand? So really, the right understanding of karma will come only with the right understanding of this application, Paticca Samupada. It is conditionality. When these conditions are there, then this karma ripens. If the conditions are not there, it doesn't ripen. Unless it is very strong, there are certain categories of karma, like the heavy karma. Whatever the conditions is there, it definitely ripens. That is why even the law of karma is also a middle, in Buddhism, is a middle path approach. It is not 100% fatalism, neither is it 100% chance. There is a little bit. It is a middle path approach. There are certain things that you have done strongly, strong actions. Definitely the result will come to you. That when the results come to you, that some people take it as fatal. Not everything is fatal. You can change certain things. Don't go and believe the fortune teller. And the palmists and the astrologers, everything, 100%. Now, we talk about that sometimes. We also indulge in those things. But you have to understand that horoscopes, astrology, they are actually a science. It's a worldly science. They reveal the karmic tendency of a person. The lines on your hand reveals the kind of habits, the kind of tendencies that you accumulated. But you can change this. With effort and wisdom, you can change. It is true that due to certain karma, that one is born with an ugly nose. But nowadays, if they have ugly nose, they can go for cosmetic surgery and they can put a nice sharp nose there. See? Use effort, use wisdom, intelligence, can change that situation. Certain situation. You postpone it. Next birth again comes. Now, Paticca Samupada is also explains moral causation or moral behavior. Then even social phenomena. Social phenomena can also be explained and understood in terms, should be understood in terms of Paticca Samupada, causal phenomena. When this arises, that arises. When does crime arise? A lot of crime arises when what? What are the conditions necessary? In the Chakkavati Sihanada Sutta, there is mentioned how a universal monarch, he analyzes the situation and then he states and says, when crime, where there are poverty, with poverty, there arises more crime, more immoral practices. Of course, when you don't have enough food to eat, you don't have enough clothes to wear, then the thoughts of stealing arises in your mind. Not so easy to practice. So, more rampant. So, depends. One condition where there is this set of condition, this set of condition arises. So, spiritual phenomena also. The spiritual growth of a person also explained according to this dependent origination. Dependent on conditions. How does a person grow spiritually? The first highest blessing in life in the Mangala Sutta, Asevanacha balanam panditanancha sevana pujaja pujaniyana etam mangalam uttama. Not to associate with the fools, associate with the wise, honor, respect those worthy of honor. This is the highest blessing. When you associate, you have good company, faithful company, then you associate with the wise. You come into contact with religious people, holy people, really holy people. That means those people, we have to explain what holiness means. Simply because a person wears the yellow robes and shaves his head, he need not be holy. Simply because he calls himself a religious person, he may not be that religious. The criteria of holiness depends on these three things. Remember, the criteria, whether there is greed in that person, whether there is cravings, strong cravings, whether there is hatred, whether there is delusion, stupidity in the mind. So, these three things. When that person is free, less craving, less hatred, less delusion, that is the mark of a spiritual person. When you come into contact with a spiritual person, you associate with that person, you want to hear what he has to say, then you begin to listen to the doctrine, the teachings. When you listen to the doctrine, to the teachings, what happens? then you begin to remember. You remember that teaching and you test. You put that teaching to test. When certain situation arises, you think of that teaching and see whether it is right or wrong. After putting that teaching or the Dhamma to test, then you approve or disapprove it. If that is the Dhamma, the truth, then you approve it. When you approve, there is approval in your mind, confidence arises. When confidence arises, then you want to practice more. When practice, you realize. See the conditions. One condition, when this condition arises, this arises. When this arises, this arises. When you have good friends, you learn how to respect. You learn how, all the good things. When you have bad friends, good friends go away, then all your reverence, all your faith